girl from Chicago is such a wreck. She looks and she talks like an intellect. She thinks that Nietzsche is swell and that all of our morals should go straight to hell. She always wears knee socks and on her nose a pair of thick glasses, sure to repose. Instead of flitting, she'll be sitting with that million-term paper she's written. The girl from Chicago, our next president, she will be.
Could you tell me sort of what it was like to be a woman on campus?
Well, I think they were not taken as seriously. We were not taken as seriously as we should. We didn't take ourselves as seriously as we should have. Because we weren't thinking of it. We weren't ambitious the way we expected men to be ambitious, to have to earn a living.
My parents had made this plan. I was going to go to the University of Chicago. My Aunt Helen said, "It's a terrible place. Don't send her there. Send her IU. Send her to Butler."
Why didn't your Aunt Helen like it?
Well, you're going to be a commie. You're going to be, I'm sure they didn't think I was smart enough. I think they thought, I should be going into something, go be a dancing school teacher. And then the variety of the age differences. Like one of the women I was talking with, just emeritized, she came when she was 14. I was 15. And the GIs were coming back, and they were 25. The guy that I ran around with the most was 25. He should have been in jail. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't really think in terms of male or female. It was just dog paddling to keep afloat. I took an economics class with another woman. There were 2 women in this room, and this professor did not want a woman in his class. He did everything he could to get rid of us. Well, he got rid of me at the end of that semester, but she stuck it out and went on to become a lawyer.
When you say he did everything he could, what kinds of things?
I had the feeling we got the hardest questions. I had the feeling that, as was discussed this afternoon, whatever we said wasn't really important. I really felt repelled by him.
I think the other thing is that one of the questions you asked was, is gender the primary issue that we had to deal with? Gender was secondary in our class. It was always a racial issue. I had a class where I walked in and someone told me I was going to fail the class as soon as I walked in. It had nothing to do with my sex. It was the fact that I was a black person. What helped me was that it was a class where basically it was an analytic class. So there wasn't a question of whether an answer was right or wrong. So that gave me an opportunity to say, you can't fail me just because of your interpretation. I don't think other students had to deal with that, and it certainly was not a gender issue.
I would second that. It wasn't a gender issue at all. I was in the social sciences, and in the social sciences, interpretation mattered. One of the major issues for me was that it was difficult for the professor to believe that I had not only absorbed the material, but had a critique of the material. And so it was essential at one point to petition the dean that the professor grade me fairly on my papers and exams. So gender was secondary. The main thing was being treated as if you were a qualified student. Race was the issue.
People judge you based on your race, and I had an incident with me and my mentor. My mentees were, we just came back from dinner downtown, and these guys in the dorm were like yelling out the window like all these obscenities and slurs at us, and then like when we confronted our house parent about our ages about it, the guys immediately like denied it, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know they went to school here," and to me it was like, even if I wasn't a student at the university, what you were saying was totally out of line.
Political activism a big part of being a student here?
Yeah, I would say, but a lot of those political feminist activism, little, not a whole lot. I mean, I would say that people were certainly sensitive in a typical Chicago way, in an individual way. People were very.
When you say typical Chicago,
I think we're individualists here. I don't think of ourselves as particularly communal in our mores.
I didn't notice feminism on campus. Definitely people were involved in protesting against the war in Vietnam, and actively worked for candidates. But I don't remember the feminism part of it. I went on to the business school. I did a 5-year BA MBA program as part of the professional option program. And that is when I noticed how I was in the minority and how women didn't have as much of a contribution to the business school. I'm guessing that women represented maybe 20% of the business school at that time. And so then I began to notice that there were women's groups that were forming to focus on our special needs and issues.
there was nothing like a Center for Gender
Studies. No one thought in terms of women, except that there were exceptionally good women. We were very proud of them, but there was nothing in the sense that of the pride, of the feminine pride that came later on.
My experiences of, in peer relationships were generally very good. That people were respectful and appropriate, and some of my very close friendships in college were with men. Although my lasting ones and the ones that I'm back, my friends who I come back to reunion with are my women friends.
I think also it was a very exciting time. I think we were learning the language of feminism and taking these courses that were not part of what we had in high school, or I had. We were taking courses with, I took Martha McClintock and Lauren Berland. Right.
Yeah.
So feminist theory, and it just...
Right, and Amy Cass taught the Men and Women in Literature course for the first time when several of us took it.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot changing. I mean, the curriculum was just beginning to change. Our humanities and social science core classes, generally at the end of each quarter, there was a text written by a woman, because the texts up until then were the traditional great books texts that were all male texts. And even in the social sciences, where there was 20th century writing, the vast majority of it were by men. Yeah. And then at the final reading in each quarter was generally a female written text. And so things were just beginning to shift in terms of curriculum, I think, in what we were reading and being taught in terms of great ideas.
Even though there's so much room to go beyond that, it was also a very exciting time. You felt like you were on the cutting edge, you were learning the language, you were having those conversations, and I think that's what kind of kept us together, was that consciousness.
And listen, this group of friends that's back 20 years later, we had many connections, and Hillel was a big connection for us, but the feminist theory class was actually a tremendous bonding experience. It really was.
I guess I didn't really notice that the guys here necessarily dominated the conversations, and it was difficult for girls to, assert their arguments, as they had mentioned and all throughout high school that was the case if you went to school with guys.
So you didn't find that to be...
So I didn't really find that to be true here. Maybe at other schools, but I feel like the females here are smart enough to take on, males.
I think that your generation often thinks that those battles are entirely in the past, and I don't agree with that. So I would say if you feel uncomfortable, stymied, seek out support and help. That's what I would always say. Do what I didn't do.
Sometimes the males would feel like you weren't carrying your weight, or you didn't know what you were talking about, so they would go out of their way to re-explain things and to say it in a different way. When so me and my classmates, my female partners, we knew what we were talking about.
I think I realized how incredibly lucky that there were so many women before me that were willing to fight for, co-ed education, or the right to not have curfew, or the right to have fellowships, or or having it become more not typical, but more prevalent that women would get fellowships and support, and and whatnot. So I really find myself very odd in the women who've come before me.
My UFC experience has been, overall, it's been positive. That doesn't mean I've liked every minute. It doesn't mean that I've been like, I love this place. I mean, there's times where I'm like, oh my God, I should have transferred. And there are times that have been like, I don't think I would have been able to do the things that I've been able to do had I not come to the UFC.
I feel like I was taught to question experts across the board and to feel empowered to be able to educate myself in any field to my need and not to have to defer or say, I don't know that, or I don't do that, or I didn't study that. So I think I feel very empowered, actually, by my education, more so than many people I know, to feel equipped to grapple with complicated things in the world.
The other one is the da 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 da. I've come to the UFC, be indoctrinated in subversity. See those little red things run around to classes in their lockers. You will find the worker and the masses. Our university has been noted for its pinkish policy. And I'm losing some of it. I don't remember